The crystalline towers of Valara Prime stretched toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the largest tower, Emperor Thalanvor stood at a window overlooking his empire. His reflection showed a being of pale blue skin and silver eyes, dressed in robes that shimmered with captured starlight. But his face showed only pain. Behind him, in a chamber filled with humming machines, his daughter lay dying. Princess Islaneth had been sick for 43 days. She was only 16 cycles old, too young to face death. The Emperor had watched helplessly as the brightest doctors in the galaxy tried everything they knew. Nothing worked. The medical chamber glowed with soft blue light. Tubes connected to the princess's arms carried medicines into her body. Screens on the walls showed her vital signs in colors the Emperor had learned to fear. The numbers kept dropping day after day, no matter what the doctors did. Chief Physician Kaelrun stood beside the princess's bed. He was the finest doctor in the Empire, a tall being with forearms and eyes that could see into different wavelengths of light. His kind had studied medicine for 10,000 years, but even he looked defeated now. "My Emperor," Kaelrun said quietly, "I must speak truth to you." The Emperor turned from the window. "Tell me, the disease is winning. Her neural pathways are shutting down one by one. Her brain is disconnecting from itself. In 3 days, maybe 4, she will be gone completely." Kaelrun's voice cracked. "I am sorry. I have failed you." The Emperor closed his eyes. "You did everything you could." "Everything I know," Kaelrun corrected. "But my knowledge is not enough." The Emperor walked to his daughter's bedside. Islaneth looked peaceful, almost like she was sleeping. But the machines told a different story. Her mind was trapped somewhere the doctors could not reach. She was falling into darkness, and no one could pull her back. "What causes this?" the Emperor asked. "We still do not know," Kaelrun admitted. "The disease attacked her neural system without warning. It creates barriers between different parts of her brain. Each barrier makes her more lost, more alone. Eventually, her consciousness will have nowhere left to go." The Emperor placed his hand on the glass that separated him from his daughter. "Have we tried everything?" "Everything known to Veleric medicine. I have consulted with specialists from 400 worlds, bioregeneration experts, neurosurgeons, psionic healers, quantum physicians. They all tried. They all failed." Kaelrun paused. "My Emperor, I believe we have reached the limits of what science can do." "Then we look beyond science," the Emperor said firmly. That night, the Emperor made a decree that shocked the Empire. He opened the palace to anyone, from any world, who thought they could help. The message went out across 1,000 systems. Save the princess and receive any reward your heart desires. They came in crowds. Strange beings from distant worlds carrying exotic medicines and unusual devices. Some claimed to use magic. Others spoke of ancient healing arts lost to time. Each one was given a chance to examine the princess. One doctor from the crystal moons brought water that supposedly held the memory of health. It did nothing. A healer from the gas giants tried to realign the princess's energy fields. Her condition worsened. A priest from the temple worlds prayed in 17 different languages. The machines showed no change. Days passed. Hope faded. The Emperor stopped sleeping. He remained in the medical chamber, watching his daughter slip further away. Sometimes he talked to her, knowing she could not hear. He told her about her mother, who had died when Islaneth was born. He made promises he knew he might not keep. "I will not let you go," he whispered. "I will search every corner of the galaxy if I must." Kaelrun stood with the Emperor during these long nights. The two had become friends through shared grief. The doctor had exhausted every option he knew, and it tormented him. "Perhaps some mysteries have no answers," Kaelrun said one night. "No," the Emperor replied. "I refuse to accept that. Somewhere, someone knows how to save her. We just have not found them yet." More supposed healers came. A being made of living light tried to share its energy with the princess. A creature from the deep waters offered to take the disease into itself. A machine intelligence attempted to copy the princess's mind before it was lost. Nothing worked. The palace, once filled with hope, now felt like a tomb. Servants spoke in whispers. The Emperor's advisors prepared for the worst. Some already discussed succession, though never where the Emperor could hear. On the 40th day, a renowned specialist from the core worlds arrived. She had cured diseases that had baffled doctors for centuries. She spent 6 hours examining the princess, using instruments that cost more than some planets. Finally, she emerged from the medical chamber. "The disease has progressed too far," she said. Even if we stopped it now, the damage to her neural system cannot be repaired. Not with any technology, I know. I am sorry. The Emperor felt something break inside him. This doctor was his last real hope. After her, only desperate chances remained. How long? He asked. 2 days. Perhaps 3. The Emperor returned to the window. His empire stretched before him, 1,000 worlds under his rule. He commanded armies that could move stars. His technology could break planets or build them. But none of it mattered. None of it could save his daughter. Sir, an aide said quietly, there are still others waiting to try. Send them away, the Emperor said. I will not give false hope anymore. My daughter deserves peace in her final hours. But the aide hesitated. Sir, there is one more. He just arrived. He carries no equipment. He claims to be a doctor, but he looks ordinary. What species? Human, sir. The Emperor had barely heard of humans. They were a young species, not very advanced. They had only just begun exploring beyond their own system. What could they possibly offer? Send him away too, the Emperor said. He says he can help. He seems very confident. They all seem confident, the Emperor said bitterly. They all fail, but something made him pause. Perhaps it was desperation. Perhaps it was the memory of a promise he made to his daughter. Perhaps it was simply that he had nothing left to lose. Fine, the Emperor said. Let him try. One more failure will not matter now. The aide bowed and left. The Emperor looked at his daughter one last time. In 2 days, maybe 3, she would be gone. He did not believe this human could change that. He was wrong. Daewon stood in the grand entrance hall of the palace and tried not to look impressed. He failed. The ceiling rose so high above him that clouds formed near the top. The walls were made of some crystal that changed color as he walked past. Beings from dozens of species moved through the hall, all looking important and busy. He felt very small and very out of place. Daewon was 28 years old, with dark hair and tired eyes. He wore simple clothes, not much different from what he wore back on Earth. His only bag was old and patched in several places. Inside was his guitar and a few medical tools. Not much compared to what other doctors here probably carried. A palace guard approached him. The guard was twice his height and had skin like polished stone. You are the human doctor? The guard asked. Yes, my name is Daewon. The guard looked him up and down, clearly unimpressed. Follow me. The chief physician will see you first. They walked through endless corridors. Daewon saw paintings that moved, windows that showed places on other worlds and machines he could not begin to understand. This empire was thousands of years more advanced than Earth. What made him think he could help where their best doctors failed? But he had to try. He had come too far to turn back now. The guard led him to a medical facility that looked more like a temple than a hospital. Everything was white and blue, sterile and cold. Doctors and nurses of various species moved quickly between rooms. In the center stood Chief Physician Kael'Run. Kael'Run was examining a holographic display when Daewon entered. The display showed images of a brain, with red sections spreading like poison through healthy tissue. The chief physician did not look up. You are the human? Kael'Run asked. Yes, sir. Do you have advanced medical training? I have 7 years of medical study and 3 years of practical experience. 10 years. Kael'Run finally looked at him. I have studied medicine for 400 years. My assistants have at least 100 years each. We have consulted with doctors who have dedicated millennia to their craft. He gestured to the display. This disease has defeated all of us. What makes you think you can succeed? Daewon had expected this question. Because I approach medicine differently. Differently how? Your medicine focuses on the body and brain as machines to be repaired. That is not wrong. But humans have learned that healing requires more than fixing broken parts. Sometimes the mind needs to be healed, not just the brain. Kael'Run's expression hardened. You think we have not considered psychological factors? We have psionic healers, consciousness experts, specialists in neural cognitive integration. They tried everything. I am sure they did, Daewon said calmly. I am not saying you missed something obvious. I am saying I might see the problem from a different angle. A human angle. Kael'Run's tone made it clear what he thought of that. Yes. Kael'Run turned off the display. Let me be direct with you. The princess is dying. She has perhaps 2 days left. I have allowed dozens of supposed healers to try their methods. All failed. Many made her condition worse. I will not let another experiment happen unless I believe it has merit. What do you want to know? Explain your method. What would you do that we have not already tried? Daiwan set down his bag. The disease created barriers in her brain. These barriers separate different parts of her consciousness. Each part becomes isolated, unable to communicate with the others. Eventually, her consciousness fragments so much that it cannot maintain itself. Am I correct so far? That is essentially accurate, Kael'Run admitted, surprised. So her consciousness did not disappear. It is trapped, lost, unable to find its way back to full awareness. We know this. We have attempted to guide her consciousness using neural stimulation, chemical pathways, psionic bridges. Nothing works. The barriers are too strong. You tried to break through the barriers, Daewon said. I would not do that. Instead, I would create a path above the barriers, a guide that her consciousness could follow back to awareness. Kael'Run frowned. That is theoretically sound, but we have no technology that can create such a path. The consciousness exists in dimensions we can barely measure. I do not need technology, Daewon said. He opened his bag and pulled out his guitar. I will use this. Kael'Run stared at the instrument. Several assistants nearby stopped working to look. One of them made a sound that might have been a laugh. That is a primitive stringed instrument, Kael'Run said slowly. You think you can cure a complex neural disease with music? Not cure, guide. Music creates patterns. These patterns can synchronize with brainwave activity. If I can match my music to her neural rhythms, I might be able to create a path her consciousness can follow. This is absurd, Kael'Run said flatly. Music therapy is a minor field, useful for stress relief and minor psychological issues. You cannot seriously suggest it could work on a disease this severe. It works on Earth, Daewon said. We have used music to reach patients in comas, to help people with brain damage, to guide minds back from places medicine cannot reach. Not always, not even often, but sometimes. The princess is not sometimes. Kael'Run's voice rose. She is dying and you want to play songs at her. I understand your anger, Daewon said quietly. You have exhausted every option you know. You are watching her die despite your best efforts. That must be terrible. But anger does not change the fact that everything else has failed. What harm can one more attempt do? It wastes time she does not have. How long would you need to try another treatment? Hours, days. I only need to sit beside her and play. You can continue monitoring her. If it does not work, you lose nothing. Kael'Run wanted to refuse. Everything in his training said this was foolish. But he looked at the display again, at the red sections spreading through the princess's brain. He thought of the Emperor's face, desperate and broken. I will not permit this, Kael'Run said. Daewon nodded slowly. He had expected this. Then I will wait. When the Emperor asks why I was not allowed to try, you can explain your reasoning to him. It was not a threat, just a statement of fact, but it made Kael'Run pause. The Emperor had issued a decree. Anyone could try to help his daughter. The chief physician did not have authority to turn away a potential healer, no matter how unlikely their method seemed. Wait here, Kael'Run said finally. He left the room. Daewon sat down on a bench and waited. Several assistants whispered to each other, glancing at him and his guitar. He ignored them. He had dealt with skepticism before. An hour passed. Then Kael'Run returned, looking unhappy. The Emperor has overruled me, Kael'Run said. You will be permitted to attempt your method. But understand this, I will be monitoring everything. If you cause her any distress or make her condition worse, I will remove you immediately. You will have one chance. Do not waste it. I understand, Daewon said. Thank you. Do not thank me. I am only following orders. Kael'Run turned toward a corridor. Come, I will take you to her. Daewon picked up his bag and followed. His heart beat faster. He had argued confidently, but the truth was he had never treated a disease this severe. He had never worked with alien physiology. He was taking a guess based on theory and hope, but sometimes hope was all you had. They walked through more corridors until they reached a large door guarded by soldiers. Kael'Run placed his hand on a scanner and the door opened. Inside was the medical chamber. Machines surrounded a bed where Princess Ilaneth lay motionless. She looked young and fragile. Tubes ran from her arms to devices Daewon did not understand. Screens showed information he could barely read. Emperor Thalanvor stood beside the bed. He turned when they entered. This is the human? The Emperor asked. Yes, my Emperor, Kael'Run said. This is Daewon. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. You believe you can save my daughter? Daewon met his eyes. I believe I can try something no one else has tried. I cannot promise success, but I can promise I will do everything I know. The Emperor nodded slowly, then began. Time is running out. Daewon approached the princess's bed slowly. Kale Run watched his every move, forearms crossed, ready to intervene at the first sign of trouble. Several medical assistants stood nearby, monitoring equipment. The Emperor remained by the window, his back straight but his hands trembling slightly. The princess looked peaceful. Her skin was pale blue, almost white. Her breathing was so shallow that Daewon could barely see her chest move. The machines hummed and beeped, tracking vitals he did not fully understand. May I examine her? Daewon asked. Kale Run nodded stiffly. Do not touch her directly. Use the scanner provided. An assistant handed Daewon a device that looked like a flat panel. He held it over the princess and it displayed information in symbols he could not read. But he did not need to understand the alien writing. He was looking at patterns, at rhythms, at the basic mathematics of life. Her heart rate was irregular. Her brain activity showed in waves that spiked and fell without pattern. The neural barriers Kale Run mentioned showed as dark sections in the scan, cutting through her brain like walls. But Daewon noticed something else. Between the chaotic spikes there were moments of rhythm, brief instances where the patterns almost synchronized. It reminded him of a song played by an orchestra that had lost its conductor. The musicians were still trying to play together, but without guidance they fell out of sync. Her consciousness is not gone, Daewon said. It is still trying to maintain itself. We know this, Kale Run replied. But those moments of coherence are becoming fewer each day. Soon they will stop entirely. Daewon handed back the scanner. He sat down on the floor beside the bed, cross-legged, and pulled out his guitar. Several people in the room shifted uncomfortably. This was not how medicine was supposed to look. What are you doing? Kale Run asked. Observing, Daewon said simply. Observing what? We have observed her for 43 days. You observed her body. I need to observe her rhythm. Daewon closed his eyes and listened. Not with his ears, but with something deeper. He listened to the machines, to the pace of her breathing, to the quality of silence in the room. He let his mind quiet until he could feel the rhythm beneath everything. Musicians learned to do this. When playing with others, you had to sense the rhythm they followed, even if it was not obvious. You had to find the invisible beat that connected everyone together. He was trying to find the princess's beat. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Daewon remained still, occasionally adjusting his position slightly. The people in the room grew restless. The Emperor never moved from the window. Kale Run checked the monitors repeatedly, finding no change. How long will this take? Kale Run asked finally. As long as it needs, Daewon replied without opening his eyes. This is a waste of... Please. The Emperor interrupted quietly. Let him work. Kale Run fell silent, though his frustration was obvious. Another hour passed. Daewon's breathing had synchronized with the princess's. His heartbeat had slowed to match the rhythm he sensed beneath her irregular vitals. He was not thinking anymore, just feeling. Then he found it. A pulse so faint he almost missed it. A rhythm hidden beneath the chaos like a drumbeat far away. It was her consciousness, still fighting, still trying to maintain its pattern despite the barriers breaking it apart. Daewon opened his eyes and picked up his guitar. He placed his fingers on the strings but did not play yet. He waited for the right moment, for the faint pulse he had found. There. He played a single note, soft, gentle, barely louder than a whisper. He let it hang in the air, then played it again. And again, the same note, the same rhythm matching the pulse he had felt. What is he doing? An assistant whispered. Quiet, Kale Run said, though he looked equally confused. Daewon continued. One note over and over, creating a steady rhythm. He watched the monitors from the corner of his eye. The princess's brain activity did not change immediately, but after several minutes he saw the smallest shift. One of the chaotic waves aligned slightly with his rhythm. It was working. He added a second note, then a third, building a simple melody. Nothing complex, nothing fancy, just a basic pattern that repeated every few seconds. The kind of pattern that could sink into your mind without you realizing it. The monitors showed more activity. Kale Run leaned closer to the screens, his eyes widening. Her neural activity is responding, he said. How is that possible? Daewon did not answer. He could not afford to break his concentration. He kept playing, adjusting the melody slightly each time he noticed the princess's brainwaves shifting. It was like having a conversation with someone who could not speak. He played a phrase, waited for her brain to respond, then adjusted based on what he felt. The Emperor turned from the window, hope dawning on his face for the first time in weeks. "Is it working?" he asked. "Her brainwaves are synchronizing with the musical pattern," Kael'run said, his voice filled with disbelief. "Not completely, but more than they have in days. I do not understand the mechanism, but something is happening." Daewon allowed himself a small smile. This was the hard part. Establishing the initial connection was just the beginning. Now he needed to maintain it and slowly strengthen it. That would take time. He began to sing. Not words, just soft sounds that matched the melody. His voice added another layer to the pattern, another anchor for the princess's consciousness to follow. Hours passed. Daewon's fingers grew sore, but he did not stop. The melody evolved gradually, becoming slightly more complex as the princess's brain showed it could handle more stimulation. He was building a bridge, note by note, between her fragmented consciousness and the waking world. Medical staff came and went, observing with fascination. Word spread through the palace. The human was doing something impossible. The princess was responding to music. But Kael'run remained cautious. "This is encouraging," he admitted, "but we are far from success. Her consciousness is slightly more active, but she is still trapped. The barriers remain." "I am not trying to break the barriers," Daewon said during a brief pause. "I am creating a path around them, like a river that flows around a rock instead of through it." "Can you explain the theory?" Daewon thought for a moment. "Her consciousness is like a person lost in a dark maze. You have been trying to tear down the maze walls. That is logical, but the walls are too strong. I'm instead lighting a path through the maze. If I can make the path bright enough, she will be able to follow it out. And the music is the light? The music creates a pattern. Her brain wants to synchronize with patterns. It is how consciousness works. Right now, her brain has too many conflicting patterns because of the barriers. My music gives her one clear pattern to follow. If she follows it long enough, it will guide her back." Kael'run studied the monitors thoughtfully. "This should not work. The barriers prevent neural communication. Your music should not be able to cross them." "Maybe it does not cross them," Daewon said. "Maybe it goes deeper than them. Music affects the brain at a fundamental level. It reaches parts of consciousness that are below cognition, below thought. The barriers block thinking, but they might not block feeling." "Speculation," Kael'run said, but his tone was less harsh than before. "Yes," Daewon agreed. "I am guessing. But educated guessing is sometimes all we have." He returned to playing. The melody had evolved into something beautiful now, still simple but with layers of rhythm and harmony. The princess's vital signs continued to improve gradually. Her breathing deepened slightly. Her heart rate became more regular. As night fell over the palace, Daewon showed no signs of stopping. The Emperor ordered food and water brought for him, but Daewon barely touched it. He ate a few bites during brief pauses, drank some water, then returned to the music. "You need rest," Kael'run said. "She cannot rest," Daewon replied. "Her consciousness is fighting every moment to survive. If I stop now, she might lose the connection we have built. You cannot play forever. I can play until she wakes up or I collapse, whichever comes first." The Emperor approached him. "Your dedication honors my daughter. But the physician is correct. You need strength for tomorrow." "Tomorrow might be too late," Daewon said. "The connection is still fragile. I need to reinforce it while I can." The Emperor looked at Kael'run, who shrugged helplessly. "I do not understand what he is doing well enough to say whether stopping would be dangerous. The princess's vitals are improving. Perhaps he is right. Then I will stay with him," the Emperor decided. He sat down beside Daewon. "You saved my daughter from complete darkness. The least I can do is keep you company as you work." Daewon nodded gratefully. His fingers moved across the strings and his voice rose and fell with the melody. Somewhere in the darkness of her trapped mind, Princess Eleneth heard the music and began to climb toward it. The night stretched long inside the medical chamber. Daewon played without stopping, his fingers moving across the guitar strings in patterns that had become almost automatic. The melody flowed from him like water, natural and continuous. He was exhausted, but something deeper than willpower kept him going. Emperor Thalanvor sat nearby in a chair someone had brought him. He had not left the room in hours. Occasionally, palace staff entered quietly to check on them, but no one spoke. The only sounds were the music, the humming machines, and the soft breathing of the dying princess. Kael'run monitored the screens constantly. The improvements were real but frustratingly slow. The princess's brainwave patterns showed more organization than before, but she remained unconscious. The barriers in her neural system had not weakened. They were still there, still isolating parts of her consciousness from each other. "I am seeing something unusual," Kael'run said suddenly. Daewon continued playing but glanced at him. "The barriers are not weakening, but the neural activity around them is increasing. It is as if her brain is creating new pathways." Kael'run zoomed in on a section of the brain scan. "These pathways are forming along the rhythm of your music. I have never seen anything like this." "Her brain is adapting," Daewon said between verses, "finding ways around the barriers instead of through them. This should take months of therapy if it is even possible." "You have been playing for 12 hours. Music is fast. It reaches the brain faster than words, faster than thoughts. The patterns create connections almost immediately." Daewon's voice was hoarse now, but he kept singing. "The question is whether we can create enough connections before her consciousness fragments completely." Dawn light began filtering through the chamber's windows. The purple sky of Valara Prime turned orange, then pale yellow. Palace workers changed shifts. Medical staff rotated, except for Kael'run, who refused to leave. Daewon's exhaustion was becoming dangerous. His fingers trembled slightly. His voice cracked on some notes. But the connection with the princess felt stronger now, more stable. He could sense her presence more clearly, like someone moving just behind a curtain. "You must rest," the Emperor said gently. "Even for an hour." "Not yet," Daewon whispered. "Soon, but not yet." He changed the melody again, making it slightly more complex. The princess's brain had been following the simpler patterns successfully. Now he needed to challenge it, to draw more of her consciousness toward awareness. It was a risk. If the pattern became too complex too quickly, he might lose the connection. The monitors flickered. Several alarms beeped. What happened? The Emperor stood quickly. Kael'run checked the readings. Her neural activity spiked. Not dangerously, just significantly. She is responding more strongly to the music. Daewon felt it too. Something had shifted. The princess was not just following the pattern anymore. She was reaching for it. He leaned closer to her bed, still playing, and sang more clearly. "Follow the sound, come back. Follow the sound." The words were in Korean, his native language. The princess could not understand them. But maybe meaning did not matter. Maybe the intention behind the words was what counted. Minutes passed. Then something extraordinary happened. The princess's right hand twitched. It was tiny, barely noticeable. But everyone in the room saw it. The Emperor gasped. Kael'run's eyes widened. Medical assistants rushed to check the equipment, thinking it might be a malfunction. "That was voluntary movement," Kael'run said, his voice shaking. "Not a spasm. Not a reflex." Her brain sent a signal to her hand, and her hand moved. Daewon's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. This was the breakthrough they needed, but it was still fragile. He kept playing, maintaining the exact same rhythm and melody. "Do not change anything. Do not risk losing this." "Islanette," the Emperor called softly. "Can you hear me? Can you hear your father?" No response. But her hand twitched again. "She hears something," Kael'run said. "Her auditory centers are more active now. She is processing sound." Daewon modified the melody slightly, adding a rising progression that suggested climbing, moving upward. "Come up from the darkness. Climb toward the light." The princess's breathing changed. It became deeper, more regular. Her eyelids fluttered but did not open. "Talk to her," Daewon said to the Emperor. "Let her hear your voice along with the music." The Emperor moved closer to his daughter's bed. His voice was thick with emotion. "Islaneth, I am here. I have been here every day. I will not leave you. Please come back to me, please." The combination of music and familiar voice created something powerful. The princess's brain activity surged again, and this time it sustained. Whole sections of her neural network that had been dark for weeks suddenly lit up on the monitors. "Impossible," Kael'run breathed. "Those areas have been dormant for days." "How?" "Keep talking," Daewon told the Emperor. "Tell her things she knows." "Familiar memories," the Emperor understood. "Do you remember your 7th cycle birthday? We went to the Crystal Gardens. You wanted to touch every crystal, and I told you some were too hot. But you touched one anyway and burned your finger. I held you while you cried, and you said the crystal was mean. We laughed about that for years." The princess's lips moved, forming soundless words. "She is trying to speak," an assistant said. More memories poured from the emperor, stories of Islaneth's childhood, her favorite foods, her friends, her dreams of seeing other worlds. Each memory seemed to pull more of her consciousness toward the surface. Day One wove the music around the emperor's words, creating a tapestry of sound and meaning. He was so tired he felt like he might faint, but he could not stop now. They were so close. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher in the sky. More people had gathered outside the medical chamber, hearing rumors of the princess's improvement. Palace guards kept them away, but word spread through the capital. The princess was waking. The human's music was working. Kael'run called in specialists to observe. They arrived skeptical and left amazed. One elderly doctor who had practiced medicine for 600 years stood watching the monitors with tears in her eyes. "I thought I had seen every possible treatment," she whispered. "But this is beyond anything I imagined." By mid-afternoon, the princess had progressed remarkably. Her vital signs were stronger than they had been in a month. Her brain showed organized activity in areas that had been silent. She responded to sound, to touch, to her father's voice. But she still had not opened her eyes. Day One's voice was nearly gone. His fingers were bleeding from the guitar strings. His body screamed for rest, but he could feel how close they were. The princess was almost at the surface, just a little more. He changed the melody one final time, making it bright and clear and insistent. This was not a lullaby anymore. This was a call to wake up. "Islaneth," the emperor said urgently, "please open your eyes. Come back to us completely." The princess's eyelids fluttered more strongly. Her head turned slightly toward the sound of her father's voice. "You can do it," Day One sang softly. "Just a little more. Follow the music. Come home." The moment stretched impossibly long. The entire room held its breath. Machines beeped. The melody played. The emperor gripped his daughter's hand. Then slowly, like dawn breaking over a dark ocean, Princess Islaneth opened her eyes. They were unfocused at first, confused, seeing but not understanding. Then they found her father's face. Recognition sparked. "Father?" Her voice was barely a whisper, rough from disuse. The emperor's composure shattered. He held his daughter's hand and wept. Yes, I am here." "You are safe." The princess's eyes moved to Day One, still playing his guitar beside her bed. She looked at him with confusion and wonder. Music?" she managed to say. "Rest now," Kael'run said, his own voice unsteady. "You have been very sick. You need to recover slowly." But the princess kept looking at Day One. "You saved me?" Day One finally stopped playing. The sudden silence felt strange after so many hours of continuous music. He smiled at her, exhausted beyond measure but happier than he had been in years. "We saved you," he said. "Your father, the doctors, and a little bit of music." The princess smiled faintly before her eyes closed again. But this time it was natural sleep, not unconsciousness. Her breathing was steady. Her brain activity showed normal sleep patterns. She was truly resting now, not trapped. Kael'run checked the monitors one more time, then turned to Day One. "I do not understand what you did. It should not have worked. But you saved her life." Day One set down his guitar carefully. His hands were shaking. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the ones we overlook. "You must rest now," the emperor said. "You have given me back my daughter. Whatever you need, it is yours. I just need sleep," Day One said, "and maybe some bandages for my fingers." He tried to stand, but stumbled. The emperor caught him. "Someone take him to the finest guest quarters," the emperor ordered. "See that he has everything he needs." As they led Day One away, he looked back at the princess one more time. She was alive. She was going to be okay. The impossible had happened. Outside the chamber, morning had turned to afternoon. Day One collapsed into the bed in his new room and fell asleep instantly. He had played for 20 hours straight. He had brought someone back from the edge of death with nothing but music and determination. He had proven what humans had always known but rarely showed to others. Healing was as much art as science, and sometimes a simple song could change everything. Day One slept for 14 hours and woke with every muscle in his body aching. His fingers were stiff and sore, wrapped in bandages someone had applied while he slept. His throat felt raw, but when he remembered the princess opening her eyes, everything else seemed worth it. A palace attendant heard him moving and brought food. Day one ate slowly, grateful for the simple meal that reminded him a little of Earth cuisine. Through the window of his guest room, he could see the capital city stretching to the horizon. Thousands of crystalline towers caught the morning light. "The chief physician requests your presence when you are ready," the attendant said. "There is no rush. Rest as long as you need," Daewon nodded, but he knew he could not rest long. The princess had woken briefly, but she was still sick. The barriers in her brain remained. What they had achieved was just the beginning, not the end. An hour later, he returned to the medical chamber. The room was crowded now. Doctors and specialists from across the empire had arrived to observe the princess's recovery. They spoke in hushed voices, examining data, debating theories about what had happened. Kael'run spotted Daewon and approached immediately. "How do you feel?" "Sore, but functional." Daewon looked at the princess. She was sleeping peacefully. "How is she?" "Stable. Her consciousness is more integrated than before, but still fragmented. The barriers have not diminished. She wakes for brief periods, then falls back into sleep. Each time she wakes, she is more coherent." Kael'run paused. "You bought us time. But the disease is still active. If we do not continue treatment, she will regress." "I know," Daewon said. "Yesterday was just establishing the connection. Now we need to strengthen it. For how long?" "As long as it takes. Days probably." Kael'run looked troubled. "Can you maintain that? You nearly collapsed yesterday. I will not do it alone this time." Daewon turned to the gathered doctors. "Is there anyone here who understands music theory?" An assistant raised her hand tentatively. "I studied musical mathematics as a hobby." "Good. I need someone to help me monitor the princess's responses and adjust the musical patterns accordingly." Daewon looked at Kael'run. "And I need you to explain her brain activity to me in terms I can understand. If I can see exactly how she responds to different sounds, I can be more precise." Kael'run nodded slowly. "You want to turn this into a systematic treatment instead of improvisation?" "Yes. What I did yesterday worked, but it was inefficient. With proper monitoring and support, we can do better." "I will help however I can," Kael'run said. His skepticism had transformed into genuine respect. They spent the next hour setting up equipment. The assistant, whose name was Hana, helped translate the medical displays into visual patterns Daewon could interpret. She showed him how different sections of the princess's brain responded to various frequencies and rhythms. The lower frequencies seemed to reach deeper into her consciousness, Hana explained, but the higher ones create stronger responses in her sensory centers. "So I need both," Daewon said. "A foundation of low frequencies with higher melodies on top. That would be optimal, yes." The Emperor arrived as they were preparing to begin. He looked exhausted but hopeful. "My daughter woke again this morning. She asked for you. What did she say?" "She wanted to know if the music man was coming back. She said she could still hear your song in her mind like an echo." The Emperor's eyes were bright. "Thank you. Whatever happens next, you have already given me the greatest gift." I saw her smile again. Daewon felt emotion tighten his throat. "We are not finished yet, but we will get her back completely. I promise." He sat beside the princess's bed and picked up his guitar. The bandages on his fingers made playing awkward, but he managed. Hana sat nearby with monitoring equipment. Kael'run stood at the main console, ready to alert them to any significant changes. Daewon began to play. This time the melody was more structured. He started with a deep, resonant rhythm that matched the princess's heartbeat. Over this foundation, he built layers of higher notes that danced and swirled like birds in flight. The music was still simple enough to follow, but more complex than yesterday. The princess's brain responded immediately. Sections that had been dim brightened on the monitors. Neural pathways that had formed yesterday strengthened and grew. New connections began forming. Tiny bridges across the barriers that divided her consciousness. Hours passed. Daewon played continuously, but now he took short breaks every 90 minutes. During these breaks, Hana maintained a simpler rhythm on a small keyboard, while Daewon rested his hands and drank water. The princess's brain stayed engaged with the music even when Daewon paused, which was encouraging. "She is learning to maintain the connection herself," Kael'run observed. Her brain is adapting to use the musical patterns as a framework. In the afternoon, the princess woke. Her eyes opened slowly and she looked around the room with more awareness than before. "Father," she said clearly. The emperor rushed to her side. "I am here, my star." She smiled at the old nickname, then turned her head toward Daewon. "You came back." "Of course," Daewon said, still playing softly. "I told you I would help you. The music. It is in my head. Even when you stop, I hear it." "That is good," Daewon told her. "Your brain is using the music to heal itself. The longer you listen, the stronger the connections become. Will I get better?" "Yes," Daewon said with confidence he did not entirely feel. "It will take time, but you will get better." The princess listened to the music for several minutes before speaking again. "What is your name?" "Daewon." "That is a strange name. Where are you from?" "A planet called Earth. It is very far from here." "I would like to see Earth someday," the princess said sleepily. Her eyes were closing again. "Maybe you will," Daewon said. "But first you need to rest and heal." She drifted back to sleep, but her expression was peaceful. The emperor squeezed Daewon's shoulder gratefully before returning to his vigil by the window. The second day passed much like the first, though less desperately. Daewon played for hours at a time, now confident in his method. Hana learned to anticipate when he needed breaks and seamlessly continued the music. Kael'run documented everything meticulously, fascinated by the treatment's mechanics. The princess woke more frequently now, each time staying conscious longer. She talked with her father, asked questions about what had happened, and always listened carefully to Daewon's music. Sometimes she hummed along quietly, which delighted everyone. Her brain actively participating in its own healing was the best sign possible. Other doctors came to observe and left shaking their heads in wonder. Some tried to explain the phenomenon in terms of neural resonance and frequency synchronization. Others simply called it miraculous. All agreed they were witnessing something unprecedented. On the third day, Hana noticed something interesting. The princess's brainwave patterns are starting to generate their own rhythms that match your music. She is not just responding anymore. She is creating. Her consciousness is rebuilding itself, Kael'run said, using the musical framework as a template but adding her own structure. Exactly what we hoped for, Daewon said. That evening, the princess stayed awake for almost 2 hours. She talked with her father about things she remembered and things she wanted to do when she recovered fully. Her speech was still slow and sometimes confused, but improving rapidly. "Daewon," she said suddenly, "why did you come here? My father's decree went to every world. But you are from a small planet very far away. How did you even hear about me?" Daewon paused his playing. "I heard about it from a trader who visited Earth. He mentioned the decree. Most people laughed. They said humans had nothing to offer an empire as advanced as yours. But I thought, maybe that is exactly why I should try. Sometimes an outsider sees solutions that experts miss. You came all this way just to try?" "Yes, that was very brave." "Or very foolish," she smiled. "Maybe both." "Definitely both," Daewon agreed, smiling back. The princess watched him play for a while longer. "Your music is beautiful. Not like our music. Simpler, but also deeper somehow. It feels warm." "Human music often sounds warm," Daewon said. "We put our emotions into it. Joy, sadness, hope, love. Music for us is not just sound. It is feeling made audible." "I think that is what saved me," the princess said thoughtfully. "Not the patterns or the frequencies. The feeling in your music. It reminded me what it felt like to be alive. So I followed it back." Daewon stopped playing for a moment, moved by her words. That might be the wisest thing anyone has said about what happened here. Kael'run had been listening. "If that is true," he said slowly, "then we have been approaching medicine incorrectly for millennia. We focused on the body and the brain but forgot about the consciousness that lives inside them." "Not forgot," Daewon said gently. "Just develop different priorities. Your medicine saves countless lives, but some problems need a different approach." "And some problems," the princess added, "need a human with a guitar who is brave enough or foolish enough to try the impossible." Everyone in the room laughed. It was the first genuine laughter the medical chamber had heard in months. The princess fell asleep again, but when she woke the next morning, everyone knew she had turned a week after the princess first opened her eyes. She sat in a garden chair beneath the palace's famous crystal trees. The trees grew naturally on Valara Prime. their branches made of living crystal that chimed softly in the wind. The sound was beautiful, like distant bells. Princess Islaneth looked much healthier now. Color had returned to her skin. Her eyes were bright and focused. She could walk short distances with support and speak clearly for hours at a time. The medical staff monitored her closely, but everyone agreed the worst was over. Day-One sat nearby with his guitar playing softly. He still provided music therapy several hours each day, though the sessions were shorter and more relaxed now. The princess no longer needed constant stimulation. Her brain had re-established most of its normal functions. "Tell me more about Earth," the princess said. "I want to know everything." Day-One smiled. She asked this question every day. "What do you want to know today? What is the sky like? Is it purple like ours?" "No. Blue during the day, black at night with white stars. Sometimes pink and orange at sunrise and sunset." "That sounds beautiful." "And the people? Are all humans like you?" "No two humans are exactly alike. We have different skin colors, languages, cultures. Some humans love music like I do. Others prefer art or science or building things. We are very diverse." The princess considered this. "Our empire has many species, but we are not very diverse within each species. Most Valeric people think similarly, want similar things. It makes governing easier, but perhaps we lose something too." "Diversity can be challenging," Day-One agreed. "But it also creates strength. Different perspectives solve different problems." Kael'ren approached from the palace carrying data tablets. He had become friendlier over the past week, often joining their conversations. The initial hostility had transformed into genuine friendship. "Princess, your morning scans are excellent," Kael'ren reported. "Neural integration is at 78%, up from 73 yesterday. At this rate, you will reach normal function within 2 months." 2 months, the princess repeated. "That seems both very long and incredibly short." "It is remarkable," Kael'ren said. "Most recovery predictions estimated years, if recovery was possible at all." He turned to Day-One. "I have been reviewing everything that happened. I want to understand the mechanism properly." "Have you figured it out?" Day-One asked, partially. "The music created neurological patterns that mimicked healthy brain activity. But that alone does not explain the recovery. Many patients receive neural stimulation therapy without such dramatic results. Because the stimulation is usually mechanical," Day-One said. "It creates the right patterns, but there is no life in it, no emotion, no intention." "You believe intention matters medically?" "I know it does. Human doctors have known for centuries that patients with strong will to live recover better than those without it. Consciousness affects healing. We do not fully understand how, but we see it constantly." The princess listened intently. "My consciousness was trapped. The disease created walls in my brain that prevented different parts of me from talking to each other. I could not think clearly because my thoughts were in separate pieces." "That is essentially correct," Kael'ren confirmed. "But when Day-One played his music, I could feel something reaching through the walls. Not breaking them, but going around them somehow." The princess struggled to find words. "It was like, imagine being in a dark room with locked doors. You try every door, but they will not open. Then someone outside starts singing. You cannot see them, but you can hear them. You follow the sound, and somehow you find a window you did not know existed." Day-One nodded. "That is a good metaphor. The barriers blocked your normal neural pathways. But music activates the brain differently than language or thought. It reaches deeper, into more primitive areas that were not blocked. So you bypass the disease instead of fighting it directly," Kael'ren said. "Yes. And once the princess's consciousness found that bypass, her brain started building its own pathways. The music just showed her where to build." "It should not have worked this well," Kael'ren insisted. "Even with your explanation, the speed of recovery is unprecedented." "Maybe," the princess said quietly. "It worked because I wanted it to work. Because I was so tired of being lost in darkness. When I heard the music, I fought harder than I have ever fought for anything. I used every bit of strength I had to follow that sound." Day-One looked at her with respect. "That is probably the real reason. The music gave you a path, but you had to walk it yourself." "No one could do that for you. We both saved me then," the princess said. "You provided the way out and I provided the will." "A perfect collaboration," Kael'ren observed. He sat down with them. "This experience has taught me something important. I have spent 400 years studying medicine. I know more about biology, chemistry, and physics than most beings in the galaxy. But I forgot something essential. What? The princess asked. That patients are not broken machines. They are conscious beings with will and emotion. Those things matter as much as chemicals and neural pathways. Kael'ren looked at Daewon. Your species understands this instinctively. You see people first and bodies second. Not all humans, Daewon said honestly. Many of our doctors focus only on the physical too. But our medical tradition has always included healing the whole person. Body, mind, and spirit. Spirit, Kael'ren repeated. We do not have a word in our language that means exactly that. The closest translation is consciousness essence, but it is not quite the same. Spirit is hard to define, Daewon admitted. It is the part of you that remains even when everything else changes. Your core self. Some humans believe it is eternal. Others think it is just a word for complex consciousness, but everyone agrees it exists. The princess was quiet for a moment, thinking. When I was trapped in the darkness, I think my spirit was the only thing left. Everything else was scattered. But there was still a me in the center, watching, waiting, hoping. That is what followed your music back to life. Emperor Thalanvor emerged from the palace and approached the garden. He visited his daughter several times each day, still hardly believing she was recovering. When he saw her sitting up, talking, laughing, his relief was visible. You look well today, he said, kissing her forehead. I feel well, father. Daewon was just explaining how he saved me. We were all explaining it together. Daewon corrected gently. The Emperor sat with them. I have been thinking much about what happened. The best doctors in the Empire could not help my daughter. But a human from a minor world using primitive tools succeeded where they failed. This says something important. That advance does not always mean better, the princess suggested. More than that, her father said. It means we have become too proud. We assumed our technology made us superior in every way. We forgot that other species might know things we do not. We forgot to listen and learn. Kael'ren nodded. Many of my colleagues are struggling with this realization. Some refuse to accept it. They insist Daewon's success was luck or coincidence. Let them think what they want, Daewon said. The important thing is that the princess is healing. No, the Emperor said firmly. The important thing is that we learn from this. My daughter's life was saved by remaining open to unexpected solutions. If I had dismissed you because you were human, because your methods seemed primitive, she would have died. That is a lesson I will not forget. A medical assistant approached with afternoon medications for the princess. She took them without complaint, then settled back in her chair, tired from the conversation. You should rest, Kael'ren said. You have made excellent progress today, but you still need much sleep. I know, but I do not want to miss anything. For weeks I was unconscious. Now I want to be awake for everything. Despite her words, her eyes were closing. You will have years to be awake, her father said gently. Rest now. As the princess drifted off to sleep in her chair, Daewon played a soft lullaby. The Emperor and Kael'ren watched, both lost in their own thoughts. What you did here will change medicine throughout the Empire, Kael'ren said quietly. Other doctors will want to learn your methods. They will want to understand how consciousness affects healing. They should study it, Daewon agreed, but they should also remember that techniques alone are not enough. You need to care about the patient as a person, not just as a problem to solve. That is harder to teach than techniques, Kael'ren observed. Yes, but it is more important. The Emperor looked at Daewon thoughtfully. You came here expecting nothing. You risked failure and humiliation. You worked for days without rest, asking nothing in return. Why? Daewon thought about his answer carefully. Because I am a doctor. When someone is dying and I think I can help, I have to try. It does not matter if they are human or alien, rich or poor, powerful or weak. A life is a life. Your species has wisdom we need, the Emperor said. I wonder what other knowledge we have overlooked by not listening to younger species. Probably a lot, Daewon said honestly. Just as we have much to learn from you. No one knows everything. We all have different pieces of the puzzle. The crystal trees chimed in the wind and the princess slept peacefully in the garden. The worst was over. She would recover. 3 months after the princess first woke, Emperor Thalanvor summoned Daewon to the throne room. The room was enormous, with walls of polished crystal that reflected light in rainbow patterns. Hundreds of courtiers and officials lined both sides of the hall. At the far end, the Emperor sat on a throne that seemed carved from a single piece of starlight. Daewon walked the length of the hall feeling very small. He had grown more comfortable in the palace over the past months, but this formal setting was different. Everyone stared at him. Some faces showed respect, others curiosity, and a few still showed skepticism. Princess Islaneth stood beside her father's throne. She looked completely healthy now. Her neural scans showed 96% normal function, and Kalrun predicted she would reach 100% within weeks. She smiled encouragingly at Daewon as he approached. "Daewon of Earth," the Emperor said formally. "3 months ago you came to my palace in answer to my decree. My daughter was dying and the Empire's finest doctors had given up hope. You succeeded where they failed. Today Princess Islaneth stands beside me alive and well because of your skill and dedication." The crowd murmured. Some applauded politely. "I made a promise," the Emperor continued. "I said that anyone who saved my daughter would receive their heart's desire. Name your reward, Daewon. Ask for anything within my power to grant, and it shall be yours." Daewon had expected this. He had spent weeks thinking about what to request. Wealth would be meaningless. He had simple needs. Power did not interest him. Fame would be uncomfortable. He wanted something more important than any of those things, Your Majesty. Daewon said clearly. "I ask for a formal alliance between the Valeric Empire and humanity. A partnership of equals with mutual respect and exchange of knowledge." Shocked whispers filled the throne room. This was not what anyone expected. Courtiers exchanged glances. Some looked outraged at the audacity. The Emperor raised his hand and silence fell immediately. "You ask for nothing personal? No wealth, no title, no lands?" "No, Your Majesty. Those things would benefit only me. An alliance would benefit both our peoples. Humanity is a young species," an advisor said from the side. "They have barely left their own solar system. What could they offer the Empire?" "Perspective," Daewon said simply. "Different ways of thinking. Different approaches to problems. You have advanced technology, but we have learned things you have not. Music therapy, for example. How many lives could be saved if your doctors learned our methods? And how many human lives could be saved if we learned your medical technology? One unusual treatment does not justify an alliance," another advisor argued. "It is not just medicine," Daewon said. "It is everything. You have forgotten how to think like a young species. You have become set in your ways, confident that your methods are best. But sometimes fresh eyes see solutions that experience misses." Kalrun stepped forward from where he had been standing with other court officials. "Your Majesty, if I may speak?" The Emperor nodded. "I have spent 3 months studying what Daewon did. I have learned more about consciousness and healing than in my previous 4 centuries of practice. He is correct. We need perspectives different from our own. We have reached a plateau in many fields because we assume we already know the best approaches." Kalrun glanced at Daewon. "This human taught me that wisdom comes in many forms." The princess spoke up. "Father, Daewon saved my life by thinking differently than our doctors. If we dismiss his people as too primitive to matter, we will miss other opportunities. How many problems could we solve by listening to species we currently ignore?" The Emperor considered this carefully. "You argue that we need humility." "Yes, Your Majesty," Daewon said. "The Valeric Empire has achieved greatness. But even the greatest can learn from the smallest. We are not asking for charity. We are offering partnership. We learn from you, you learn from us. Both species benefit. And what does humanity have to offer besides medical techniques? Art, music, literature, philosophy. Different perspectives on consciousness, emotion, and what it means to be alive. Agricultural methods suited to difficult environments. Resilience in the face of challenges. Creativity born from limitation." Daewon took a breath. "We may be young, but we have survived and thrived despite having far less than other species. That teaches a certain resourcefulness you might find valuable." An elderly courtier spoke up. "What if we agree to this alliance and humanity proves to be a disappointment? What if they have nothing of value to offer? Then you will have lost nothing except some time and attention," Daewon said. "But I believe we will surprise you, just as I surprised you by healing the princess." The Emperor stood from his throne. The room fell completely silent. "You are wise beyond your years, Daewon. You could have asked for wealth enough to live 1,000 lifetimes in luxury. Instead, you asked for something that benefits your entire species. That shows the kind of character I wish to see in my allies." He walked down the steps and stood before Daewon. "I accept your request. The Valeric Empire will establish a formal alliance with humanity. We will open an embassy on Valara Prime for human representatives. We will share knowledge freely and work together as partners. The throne room erupted in shocked conversation. Some courtiers looked pleased, others disturbed. But no one would argue with the Emperor's decision. Furthermore, the Emperor continued, I appoint you, Daewon, as the first human ambassador to the Valeric Empire. You will serve as a bridge between our peoples. You will teach our doctors your methods and learn our medicine in return. You will help us understand your species and help your species understand ours. Daewon had not expected this. Your Majesty, I am just a doctor. I know nothing about diplomacy or politics. You know about healing, the Emperor said. Not just bodies, but relationships. That is what an ambassador does. They heal the space between different peoples, he smiled. Besides, refusing a reward is technically not permitted under my decree. You must accept something, the princess laughed. He has you there, Daewon. Father always wins arguments, Daewon bowed. Then I accept, Your Majesty. I will serve as ambassador to the best of my ability. Excellent. The Emperor returned to his throne. This alliance begins today. I want it known throughout the Empire that humanity is to be treated as respected partners, not primitive outsiders. Any world that welcomes humans welcomes the Empire's favor. Any world that insults them insults me. Over the following weeks, the palace became a center of activity. Human representatives arrived from Earth, shocked and delighted by the alliance. The Empire's media covered the story extensively. Some worlds welcomed the news enthusiastically. Others grumbled about the Emperor giving too much status to such a young species. But slowly, things began to change. Kael'run established a medical exchange program. Human doctors came to Valara Prime to learn advanced surgical techniques and pharmaceutical treatments. Valaric doctors went to Earth to study music therapy, psychological healing, and the human approach to treating patients as whole beings rather than collections of symptoms. Artists from both species collaborated, creating works that blended alien and human aesthetics. The results were strange and beautiful, unlike anything either culture had produced alone. Philosophers debated consciousness and what it meant to be alive, comparing human and Valaric perspectives. The conversations were fascinating, revealing assumptions both sides had never questioned. Scientists worked together on problems neither could solve alone. Human creativity combined with Valaric technology produced breakthroughs in multiple fields. Daewon spent his days teaching music therapy to alien doctors and learning their medical techniques. His evenings were often spent with the princess, who had become a close friend. She was fascinated by Earth and human culture, constantly asking questions and studying everything she could find. Do you miss home? She asked one evening as they sat in the crystal gardens. Sometimes, Daewon admitted. I miss the way Earth's sky looks. I miss certain foods. I miss speaking Korean without needing a translator. But this feels important, building bridges between worlds. You are good at it, the princess said. Better than most professional diplomats I have met. They focus on rules and protocols. You focus on understanding people. That is just how I was trained. In medicine, you have to understand the person to heal them properly. Apparently that works for diplomacy too. The princess laughed. My father chose well when he made you ambassador. Some of the courtiers doubted you at first, but even they have come around. Everyone sees how much humanity has to offer. And how much we have to learn from you, Daewon added. This partnership only works if both sides remain humble and open. Agreed. The princess looked up at the stars. I think this alliance will change the Empire. We have been too isolated, too confident in our superiority. Meeting humans reminds us that progress comes from many directions, not just one. Months turned into years. The alliance flourished. More species began seeking similar partnerships with the Empire. Inspired by humanity's example, the Empire became more open, more collaborative, less rigid in its thinking. Kael'run published papers about consciousness and healing that revolutionized medical practice throughout the Empire. He credited human philosophy and music therapy